Greetings, everybody. How are you? Jesse, are you there? Can anybody hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Just say yes. Yes or no. Jesse, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you? Yes, you're totally audible.
Oh, good. Jesse, are you a neurosurgeon? Jesse?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Could you hear me?
Are you a neurosurgeon?
I'm not a neurosurgeon, but I'm a specialized interpreter in the neurosurgery and neurointervention.
Oh, really? In scientific information?
Yep, that's right.
Or especially neurosurgery?
Especially in neurosurgery.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I have to get your contact information, okay?
Yep, of course.
Let me, in the chat box, I'm going to give you my email address, okay?
Yeah. That's
okay.
great. And one thing, it's that during this live transmission, because I will be on the Chinese channel, like on our website, so it's better that I don't speak in English. So I will unmute myself all the way while listening to Victor and translating them into Chinese simultaneously.
Okay. Whatever you do normally.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it going on WeChat live or going on some other platform?
Yes, we have a specialized platform called Medition.
Oh, Medition. Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
know the website's excellent website.
Yep. So it will live broadcast.
So it'll be live there now, right?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And so you'll be able to tell us how many people are watching.
I have to ask our technical staff to get the exact online number.
At the end, maybe at the end.
Yeah, yes.
At the end, but it's no big deal. It's no big, whatever. But yeah, this is mostly a test of the Chinese audience.
Yeah.
You know, we even though you basically understand science.
Yeah.
The graphics that Victor does are universal. You don't need to understand a language to understand the graphics of the brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, we can see like the vivid graphics.
Yeah, it's just seeing more than the interpretation of the words.
Yeah.
And of course, explanation in Chinese would help.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be exact, but so how long have you been doing this?
For several years, like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mostly in America, or you live in China, right?
Yes, I'm based in Shanghai.
You're in Beijing?
Shanghai.
Oh, Shanghai.
The city of
Okay.
Shanghai, yeah.
Okay, and you do a lot of interpretation for Dr. Bin?
Dr. Bin. Oh, yeah, Dr. Xu Bin from Huashan Hospital. Do you mean?
Oh, you don't
Dr.
call him
Xu
Dr.
Bin?
Bin?
Yeah,
Bin
I
Zhu.
know. Yeah. I know him.
Yep. Yeah, we do webcasts with him regularly. When I marketed this, Jesse, I marketed it mostly to the Chinese audience. I got to learn WeChat so I can promote better. on WeChat, but in the Western social media, I promoted it as a webcast basically aimed in China. Oh, Ben's here. Oh my God. I can't believe it. Wow, this is an honor. Excited, we'll get to meet him. Hey, Ben.
Hello, John.
How
Hi.
you doing today?
Hi.
How many bypasses today?
Today, 9.
Oh, you're back at normal
yeah.
speed.
Yes.
I'd like you to meet Saeed. Are you there? Well, let me see if I get Saeed in. Let me get Victor in. Oh, link. I didn't need the link. Victor will be here in a second, Ben. Oh, okay, yeah, Ben, this goes on WeChat Live, huh? Oh, Victor, here he is, okay. Okay.
Hello,
Victor.
hello, John. Hello, Vinshu. Nice to see you.
Hello, Victor. Hi.
It's a surprise to see Ben.
Hello, Victor.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. We arrange a translator for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like you
Good.
to meet Jesse. Jesse, can you say hello to Victor?
Hiya,
Yes.
Victor. Hiya.
Hello, hi. Nice to see you.
She's an interpreter that specializes in neurosurgery. She's in Shanghai.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be your interpreter tonight.
Yeah, I explained to Jesse that we're really trying to get the Chinese audience to ask her
Yes.
questions. They don't ask you, they ask her. Hopefully they'll ask Jesse and Jesse will pass them on. Okay, Jesse?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, so hopefully Jesse will say to you, hopefully, Victor, we have a question from a member. He may want to identify himself, may not.
Yeah,
From a
Jesse
member.
is a professional translator.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing. So,
Yeah.
hello, Saeed.
Hello, how are you, John?
Say hello to Ben and
Hello,
Victor.
Saeed.
Yes.
Saeed's in Reunion Island off the coast of Africa. And you know Saeed, you know Victor, of course.
Yes, it's our friend, Victor. Hi, Victor.
Hello, Said Taha. Very
How are
nice
you?
to see you.
Me too. How about news? Everything is all right?
Everything is okay here in Mexico.
Okay,
COVID
Yes.
increasing, but not as dangerous as it was.
Yes, I think it's the same, everything.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So congratulations for this webinar. Okay, and
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
on
you.
what
well, really,
on what you do.
So Victor, please forgive me because I'm still outside.
Yes.
So excuse me. So I will left.
Yes.
okay.
in
Well,
a
thank you
while.
for coming then.
So-
Thank you.
Everything is arranged, so don't worry.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ben.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for setting
Thank
it
you.
up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, Victor, you ready to start, Victor?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Good morning from Miami Beach. This is Dr. John Bennett of Neurosurgical TV. We are honored today to have a special webcast of Victor Hugo Perez. Perez, a well-known neuroanatomist, and we have interpreters both in Chinese and Japanese. We're really trying to get the Chinese audience involved in Victor's webcast. We don't know how successful it will be, but we're going to encourage the Chinese audience to make comments or ask questions to the interpreter. You don't have to come on the screen. You just have to text Jesse, who's the interpreter. Say hello, Jesse. Hello, Jesse, you there?
Hiya, hiya.
Okay, there's Jessie. She's gonna hopefully be active and hopefully get the Chinese people involved. Meanwhile, I've worked with Victor all over the world. He broadcasts especially in Latin America, but he's televised in China. He's televised all over the world, India, America, all parts of the world. And we're very honored to have him to do a series of 6 webcasts on neuroanatomy. And I hope, I'm sure the audience will really like the demos that Victor spends a lot of time doing. He really treats it like an art, and you'll be able to tell that. So, okay, Victor, welcome.
Thank you, John Bennett. This is great effort by yourself, Dr. John Bennett, and also by our friend Bin Shu. And thank you so much. This is a great honor to be here with all of you. Let me share my screen. Okay, let's go to the whole screen. And again,
Clicked off there, Victor.
is it good? Okay, is it right now?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we are going to talk in this first lecture the surgical anatomy of cavernous sinus and supraclino carotid arteries. We are going to have 6 lectures, and the first one is this. This research has been made at Forensic Sciences Institute in Mexico City, and thanks to all of you. First of all, I want to show you what I have been done in this institute. Is sometimes I remove the brain, and then after I inject some silicone of different colors. In this video, we are seeing the injection of the lateral aspect of the brain, and these are the superficial veins of this lateral aspect. After that, we can inject also the arteries, like in the next video. In this video, we have the injection of the middle cerebral artery, as you can see in this video. In this way, we can get a beautiful injection, in order to define the anatomy of the complex formation of the arteries of the brain and also the veins. Look that with this kind of injection, we can get very small arteries injected, as you see in here. Very, very small arteries. I continue the injection and look how we can go to the very small arteries. The disadvantage of this injection is that we can get some artifacts like this. We are going to review the segments of the internal carotid artery. This artery is divided into 4 parts. The C1 or cervical portion extends from its junction with the common carotid artery to the external orifice of the carotid canal. The C2 or petrous portion closes within the carotid canal and ends where the artery enters the cavernous sinus. The C3 or cavernous portion closes within the cavernous sinus and ends where the artery passes through the dura mater, forming the roof of the cavernous sinus. And the C4 or supraclino portion begins where the artery enters the subarachnoid space, as you can see here. Here we have a superior aspect of the optic nerves, the supraclinoid segment of this internal carotid artery, the anterior clinoid process, and the bifurcation of this supraclinoid carotid artery in anterior cerebral artery and middle cerebral artery, and some small branches that are coming from these arteries. The supraclinoidal portion of the internal carotid artery is a common site of intracranial aneurysms, and its branches are frequently stretched and displaced by cranial-based tumors. As you can see in this picture, we have in here a giant meningioma displacing these arteries. The internal carotid artery and its major and perforating branches are frequently exposed during operations on aneurysm of the circle of Willis and tumors of the sphenoid ridge, anterior and middle cerebral arteries, anterior and middle cranial fossa and suprasellar region. Here we have the optic nerves, the optic chiasm, and bifurcation of this supraclinoidal carotid artery. We can see also small branches coming from these big arteries. C4 is divided into 3 segments based on the site of origin of the ophthalmic PCOM, and anterior choroidal artery. So here we have the pituitary stalk, the pituitary gland, optic nerves, the hypothalamus, the third cranial nerve, and the supraclinoidal carotid artery that has 3 segments: the ophthalmic, PCOM, posterior communicating segment, and the choroidal segment. This is the anterior choroidal artery, this one. This is the posterior communicating artery, And in the medial aspect of this supraclinoidal carotid artery, we have some small branches. The mayor of that is the superior hypophyseal artery. The ophthalmic segment has an average of 4 perforating arteries arising from the ophthalmic segment. Most arise from the posterior or medial aspect of the artery. These branches are most commonly distributed to the infundibulum, to the stalk of the pituitary gland, the optic chiasm, and less commonly in descending order of frequency to the optic nerve, premammillary portion of the floor of the third ventricle and the optic tract. This is, here we have the origin of the ophthalmic artery. Is below the optic nerve, is coming from the supraclino carotid artery. This artery commonly arises just above the upper ring from the medial half of the anterior wall of the internal carotid artery, as you can see in this picture. From its origin, it runs anteriorly and laterally on the upper surface of the optic strut and below the optic nerve. The ophthalmic artery may also arise in the cavernous sinus or from the clinoid segment, in which case it usually passes through the superior orbital fissure, and it may rarely arise from the middle meningeal artery. Here we have this beautiful picture in which we can see also the sellar diaphragm, the pituitary stalk, the anterior clinoid process, the posterior clinoid process, and here the third cranial nerve, fourth cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, sixth or abducens cranial nerve, and another lower nerves. Middle fossa. The communicating segment, no perforating branches arise from the communicating segment in more than half of hemispheres. And if present, only 1 to 3 are found. They arise from the posterior half of the wall and terminate in descending order of frequency in the optic tract, premammillary part of the floor of the third ventricle, the optic chiasm, and infundibulum. Here we have a picture in which we can identify the supraclinoidal segment of the internal carotid artery, the middle cerebral artery, the posterior communicating artery, basilar artery, posterior cerebral arteries, this the third cranial nerve passing through between the posterior cerebral artery and a superior cerebellar artery. Here we have the infundibulum of the hypothalamus, and then in this view we can see also the hypoplastic posterior communicating artery, and this artery is the anterior choroidal artery. So this is the third segment of this supraclinoid carotid artery. From the origin, from this anterior choroidal artery and to the bifurcation of this artery in anterior cerebral artery and middle cerebral artery. And we can see also some branches coming from this segment. The choroidal segment, an average of 4 branches arise from the choroidal segment. Most branches arise from the posterior half of the arterial wall and terminate in descending order of frequency in the anterior perforated substance, optic tract, and uncus. Here we can identify these branches coming from this choroidal segment of the supraclinoid carotid artery. And in this other picture, we can see the lateral aspect of this segment. The superior hypophyseal and infundibular arteries. The superior hypophyseal arteries are a group of 1 to 5 small branches that arise from the C4 segment, ophthalmic segment, and terminate on the pituitary stalk and gland. This is the pituitary stalk and the pituitary gland. But also send branches to the optic nerves, as you can see in here, and chiasma on the floor of the third ventricle. The largest of the branches is often referred to as the superior hypophyseal artery. The paired cavernous sinuses are located near the center of the head on each side of the sella. This is the sella, pituitary gland, and sphenoid sinus. Each sinus has dural walls that surround a venous space through which a segment of the internal carotid artery courses. The sinus extends from the superior orbital fissure in front to the area lateral to the dorsum sellae behind. The cavernous sinus is defined as the dural space in which the cavernous segment of the internal artery courses. Here we have the cavernous carotid artery. Not only contains the cavernous carotid artery, but also venous confluence that receive veins draining the orbit, sylvian fissure, and middle and anterior fossa, and has free communication with the basilar, superior, and inferior petrosal and intercavernous sinuses. So once we have displaced the lateral aspect of the cavernous sinus, we can identify the sixth cranial nerve, as you can see in here. So let me show you an interesting video about the dissection of the cavernous sinus. This is the optic nerve, the right optic nerve, left optic nerve. This is the ophthalmic artery. And in this video, you can see in the right side, the ophthalmic artery coming from the supraclinoidal segment. But in this case, in the left side, we cannot see the origin of the ophthalmic artery. Let's go to the video. For example, in this case, I am displacing this carotid artery, and we don't see the origin of the ophthalmic artery. Roton has described that sometimes the ophthalmic artery could be originated in the intracavernous segment, but in this case, we don't see the ophthalmic artery in the cavernous sinus. In rare occasions, this artery could be originated in the middle meningeal artery, some only in rare cases. This is a description of Dr. Albert Roton. And here we have the superior aspect of this region and cavernous sinus nerves. Here we have the oculomotor nerve. The trochlear is the thinnest of this cranial nerve, and ophthalmic nerves in the lateral wall. The nerves in the sinus wall or sinus are from superior to inferior. The third cranial nerve, followed by the trochlear and the ophthalmic and abducens nerves. This is the trigeminal nerve. Once you remove the anterior clinode process, we can see the paraclinode segment of the internal carotid artery. There are 4 triangles in the cavernous sinus, 4 middle fossa lateral to the cavernous sinus and 2 fossa in the paraclival area. We are going to review the 4 triangles in the cavernous sinus. Here we have the third cranial nerve, followed by the trochlear nerve, that is the thinnest of the cranial nerves. And then we have the infratrocular triangle, also known as Parkinson's triangle, and then the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve. And we can see some arteries coming in this triangle, like the meningo-hypophyseal trunk of the cavernous sinus. Parkinson described a triangle with the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus, through which the intracavernous portion of the carotid artery and its branches might be exposed for the surgical treatment of carotid cavernous fistula. This is the lateral aspect of this region. The clinoidal triangle. This triangle is situated between the optic and oculomotor nerves. So here, this is the clinoidal triangle and is related with the anterior clinode process. This triangle is exposed by removing the anterior clinode process, as you can see in this picture. I removed the anterior clinode process and we can see this triangle. Once you remove this anterior clinode process, you can see the paraclinoidal segment of the internal carotid artery. Paraclinoidal segment. And we can see also, if we displace the optic nerve, we can see the ophthalmic artery. The oculomotor triangle has 2 margins formed by the anterior and posterior petroclinoidal dural folds that extend to the petrous apex. The third side is formed by the interclinoidal dural fold that extends from the anterior to the posterior clinode process. The supratrochlear triangle is situated between the lower surface of the oculomotor nerve, this one, and the upper surface of the trochlear nerve. So here we have the supratrochlear triangle. The infratrocular triangle, also known as Parkinson's triangle, is located between the lower margin of the trochlear nerve and the upper margin of the ophthalmic nerve. The origin of the meningo-hypophyseal trunk from the posterior vein are located in this triangle. Look at here. If we displace this trochlear nerve, we can see the origin of the meningo-hypophyseal trunk, like in this picture. The meningo-hypophyseal trunk and the branches coming from this trunk that we are going to review. So let's go to see several pictures of this beautiful aspect of the cavernous sinus. Here I dissected some fibers of the trigeminal nerve. This is the Gasserian ganglion. And then we have the ophthalmic division of this trigeminal nerve, the maxillar and mandibular nerves. So then we have the third cranial nerve, fourth cranial nerve, and here I have the petrous segment of the internal carotid artery. This is the petrous segment. So if I showed you this picture, I am very sure that you can identify these segments of the internal carotid artery, the petrous segment and the cavernous segment. And then the nerves related with this are third cranial nerve, fourth cranial nerve, and this is the sixth cranial nerve that is located inside the cavernous sinus. And this is petrolingual ligament, also known as Gruber's ligament, this one. The posterior aspect of the cavernous sinus, I dissected the dura in order to see the posterior aspect. So here we have the meningohypophyseal trunk and some branches coming from there. This is the dorsal meningeal artery, supratentorial artery, and this could be the inferior hypophyseal artery. In this other picture, we have the intercavernous sinus. As you saw in the first video, when I inject veins in color blue, we can get these beautiful injections. So here we have the right cavernous sinus, the left cavernous sinus. I remove dura in this sellar region, and I can see the anterior aspect of the pituitary gland, posterior aspect, the pituitary stalk, and the intercavernous sinus that forms a ring in the superior aspect of the pituitary gland. The basilar sinus is the largest venous connection between the paired cavernous sinuses. The superior and inferior petrosal sinuses also open into the lateral part of the basilar sinus, creating a large venous confluence along the posterior wall of the cavernous sinus. So look at here, this is a beautiful picture of this basilar sinus that I'm going to repeat is the largest venous connection between the paired cavernous sinuses. Basilar sinus, intercavernous sinus, and posterior aspect of the cavernous, of the right cavernous sinus. Let's go to see another pictures. So here we have the Meckel scale, where we can identify the trigeminal nerve, the sixth cranial nerve in Dorello's canal, and here we have the 7 and 8 cranial nerves and 9, 10, and 11 nerves here. So in this case, I identify a petrous tumor in this cadaver. It has a petrous tumor, like you can see in here. That's the reason we have some distortion of this posterior aspect of the petrous bone. And if we continue this dissection, we can identify this sinus. I am very sure that you know this connection between the basilar sinus with this is the junction of this sinus. This is inferior petrous sinus and superior petrous sinus is in here. The abducens nerve enters a dural cave known as Dorello's canal, where it passes below the petroesphenoid ligament. This is petroesphenoid ligament that extends from the lower part of the lateral edge of the dorsum cellae to the petrous apex to enter the cavernous sinus. This is the cavernous carotid artery, the sixth cranial nerve. And here we have the inferolateral artery, inferolateral trunk of this cavernous artery. So here we have a superior view of this region: trigeminal nerve, optic nerve, and optic chiasma. Intracavernous branches. The meningohypophyseal trunk is the most proximal intracavernous branch, arises lateral to the dorsum sella at or just before the apex of the first curve of the intracavernous carotid, where it turns forward. After leaving the foramen lacerum, it is approximately the same size as the ophthalmic artery. So here we have the meningohypophyseal trunk and some branches coming from the inferolateral trunk. The third and fourth nerves enter the dural roof of the cavernous sinus just above or slightly behind the trifurcation of the meningohypophyseal trunk. The meningohypophyseal trunk divides near the roof of the cavernous sinus. Parkinson noted that the spontaneous carotid cavernous fistulas, which are presumed to be due to aneurysm rupture, tend to occur at the junction of one of the branches within the cavernous carotid. Traumatic fistulas due to tears of the carotid canal or one or more of in the intracavernous branches may have several sources. So here we have the meningohypophyseal trunk, and typically gives rise to three branches: the tentorial artery, the inferior hypophyseal, which travels medially to supply the posterior pituitary capsule, and the dorsal meningeal artery, which enters the dura of the posterior sinus wall and supplies the clival dura and sixth cranial nerve. The artery of the inferior cavernous sinus, also called as inferolateral trunk, may infrequently arise from the meningohypophyseal trunk. Another picture to look the posterior aspect of the cavernous sinus, a superior aspect. Here we have the inferior hypophyseal artery. We can see also the pituitary gland, pituitary stole, both of supraclino carotid arteries and optic nerves. The tentorial artery. This is the most constant branch of the meningohypophyseal trunk. Present in 100% of instances, this artery passes forward to the roof of the cavernous sinus and then posterolaterally along the free edge of the tentorium. It sends branches to the third and fourth cranial nerves and anastomosis with the meningeal branches of the ophthalmic artery of the opposite side. Bernasconi Casinari and Casinari first reported the angiographic visualization of a tentorial artery supplying tentorial meningiomas. Another view, we can see the tentorial artery, dorsal meningeal artery, and the sixth cranial nerve. The dorsal meningeal artery arises from the meningohypophyseal trunk. This is the dorsal meningeal artery. Passes posteriorly through the cavernous sinus with the abducens nerve to reach the dura over the dorsum and clivus. It sends a branch to the sixth cranial nerve and anastomosis with its mate to the opposite side. The inferior hypophyseal artery is the least frequent of the three common branches of the meningohypophyseal trunk. Arises from the meningohypophyseal trunk in 80% of cavernous sinus. This artery may supply pituitary adenomas and tumors of the sphenoid sinus. It may also arise directly from the intracavernous carotid segment. The inferolateral trunk is, this artery arises from the lateral side of the mid portion of the horizontal segment of the intracavernous carotid, approximately 5 to 8 millimeters distal to the origin of the meningohypophyseal. And the last one, the McConnell's capsular arteries, this artery arises from the medial side of the carotid artery and pass to the capsule of the gland or the dural lining, the anterior wall and floor of the cella. They are frequently absent, being found in approximately a quarter of cavernous sinus. The cavernous sinus has a wide posterior dural wall that it shares with the lateral part of the posterior wall of the basilar sinus. The venous connection extending across the back of the upper clivus and dorsum cellae. The basilar sinus is the largest venous connection between the paired cavernous sinus. The abducens nerve courses on the medial side of the ophthalmic nerve between it and the internal carotid artery. Look this beautiful picture to define the sixth cranial nerve and the Gruber's ligament. Videos and pictures have been obtained by myself from a research from a study done at Forensic Science Institute in Mexico City. I began to make this injection and this injection of the arteries and veins almost 33 years ago. And most of the text in this lecture was obtained from Albert Rotton in this text. So as you know, Albert Rotton described the surgical anatomy of the arteries in a precious way. It's really beautiful, the description made by Dr. Albert Rotton. Thank you very much, dear friends and colleagues. This was the first lecture about these topics. Thank you so much. I want to add my deep condolences because of the death of the ex-prime minister of Japan. My deep condolences to the people in Japan. Thank you so much. John Bennett, do you want to add something? Or do you have some question, some comment for this first lecture? Go ahead, please. Dr. John Bennett, can you hear me? Dr. John Bennett, Jesse, go ahead, please.
Oh, we haven't received any question from the Chinese neurosurgeons. And thank you for your lecture.
Thank you very much. Takashi Kon, how are you doing?
Good evening. Good evening, Perez. Not on time, but I connected from Japan. Thank you for the lecture.
Thank you so much. John Bennett.
Yes, can we ask the Chinese audience
Thank you for your
if they have any comments or questions?
Thank you very much. Takashi Kon.
Jesse, can we do that? Okay, we'll just take a minute here. And I don't expect anything to happen. But we need to be patient. So anybody that has any questions, Jesse, they can text them to you in Chinese. Okay, I don't expect to get overrun, but we'll give it a shot. So don't expect to be successful, but we thought we'd try it. And we can do it in Japanese too, Takashi. If you want to ask your audience if they have any comments or questions of Victor's presentation. Can you do that, Takashi?
Yeah, unmute me so, but
Yeah, and they can text you questions and then you can ask us, okay? If you get any comments or questions.
Okay,
I
so
guess
at this
otherwise
point-
we'll continue on, Victor. We don't seem to have any, right, Jesse? Are you there, Jesse?
Yes.
So far, no comments or questions?
Yep, no.
Okay, I didn't expect it. We'll just give it a try. Okay, Victor. Onward. Are you finished your presentation, Victor, or?
Yes, finish.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll ask if you have any comments or questions from the audience here, Saeed or let's see, there's a couple other people here that I know. Does anybody have any comments or questions from our audience in English? We can't have a complete whiteout. Well, I guess you explained it so well, Victor.
Yes.
No comments or question, but we'll get better. We got 6 chances to do that. And next, what is the lecture next week, Victor? Why don't you just go over that? Do you have that lecture next week?
Next Friday, we are going to review the anterior and middle cerebral arteries. I think
Okay.
this is a very interesting lecture. Especially, I think these anatomic lesions are very useful for residents and for medicine students, not for experts, but for residents, think are very, very useful. So I am very glad to see my friend Takashi Kon, Saitaja, and others, colleagues and friends.
Well, Victor, we had 325 Chinese neurosurgeons watching. So don't be surprised. I mean, we don't have a big hangout turn here, but in China, that's a lot of neurosurgeons
Yes.
that are watching it. So I really appreciate it, and we're going to see you next Friday.
Yes, thank you, Takashi. See you, and thank you very much,
Jesse.
for joining and also for traducing these lectures. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks everybody. Stick around.
Yeah.
Okay, we stopped the recording there.